Welcome back, budgeteers. Coach Nino Villa here, disciple of Christ, husband, father, and financial coach. And today on the New Money Habits podcast, I want to brag on one of my clients a little bit. I was reflecting on the journey she's been on over the past few years, and I want to share her journey with you. Hey there, budgeteers. The new year is here, and you know what that means. It's time for fresh starts and new habits. If one of your goals is to get better with your money, New Money Habits has exactly what you need to kick things off right: the Payday Power Planner. This isn't just any budget tool. The Payday Power Planner is designed to work with your pay periods, not just the calendar month. Why does that matter? Because it helps you to see exactly when your money is coming in and going out. No surprises, no guesswork. With the Payday Power Planner, you'll know if you're working with a surplus or facing a deficit, so you can make informed decisions about your money. It's not just a plan, it's the clarity and control you've been looking for to start the new year strong. Make this the year you finally build new habits for financial freedom. Grab your free Payday Power Planner from New Money Habits today and take the first step toward a better financial future. Visit newmoneyhabits.com now, because this year it's time for a better plan for your money. I'm really excited to share this particular client's journey. Truth be told, this is a young lady who I've suggested, hey, I should have you on the podcast because your journey's a pretty incredible one. And while she is completely agreeable and would come on the podcast in a heartbeat, our schedules conflict an awful lot. It's actually challenging to find time to meet with her just to go over our sessions. So I'm just too excited to share her journey, because I think it'll be an incredible inspiration to others, that although I will have her on to tell her side of the story, I want to brag on her a little bit. I want to share her journey, the ups and the downs, as I said, because I think it will be a source of inspiration to many. I started working with this young woman in summer of 2021, but it wasn't the first time I had ever spoken to her, and it wasn't the first time we had met. I actually work with her parents prior to working with her. And when we first started to have conversations, she wasn't making an income yet. And so everything was really theoretical, and just trying to help lay a foundation of financial literacy, get her to think about how she was going to manage her money when she had money to manage. But when we reconnected in summer of 2021, she had some funds every single month that she didn't need to manage. And so we started the process. And I started the process with her like I would start the process with any client. We're going to look at, what is your income? What do you got coming in? And what are the expenses that you have to manage? And we're going to create a budget that first starts with the month, but then narrows in on pay periods. So when does that money come in? And then in those pay periods, what expenses are going out? So we sat down and we did a budget, and she had less than $3,000 a month to manage. So she had something like $2,700 or so coming in every month. And we started to map out her expenses. But then the very next thing I do with every client is I want to sit down and help them to identify their short and long-term goals. And so she had identified two pretty big goals right from the get-go that they were both going to take a little bit of time to accomplish. But she wanted to set aside money for a rainy day. A lot of people would call that an emergency fund. We here at New Money Habits call that a peace of mind fund. And boy, was that exactly the appropriate title, as you'll learn later on. But she wanted to build out a peace of mind fund. And so we had a goal of saving $10,000. And she wanted to save for a cross country move that she was anticipating. The move wasn't going to happen for about a year, but she knew she wanted to save money toward that goal as well. And so we had a $2,000 saving goal for moving and a $10,000 saving goal for peace of mind. And we started working on a monthly basis toward those goals. We were managing the income and the expenses, and we were managing the surplus that she had. While it was not a large surplus, she had more money. She was making more money every month than her expenses, which is a good thing, right? We want to always be in a surplus. And if we're managing a deficit, we're going to figure out how to turn that deficit into a surplus by either getting the income up and or getting expenses down. So we worked together for just short of a year before she was finishing up her senior year in college and making a move, whether that was going to be a move cross country as originally planned or a move back to her hometown. We worked together until May of 22, and by the end of May, when she was making plans for moving, we had saved $5,900 in the peace of mind fund, but we had not yet saved specifically for moving. So between those two things, there was a savings goal of $12,000, and we were just shy of half of that about 10 months later. And so I would call this kind of the first season of her financial management life. Again, we started working together in August of 2021, and we took a break between May of 2022 and February of 2023. And so in that first season of financial responsibility, I would say that my client was learning how to make informed decisions. So by the time she needed to move, she had just shy of $6,000 saved. She had this cross country move in mind, and we talked a lot about what does life look like once you get there? What does employment look like? How much are wages in that area? How much are expenses like rent, gasoline, and food in that area? So we talked a lot about how to manage the money she had right now in the season that she was in, but we were also looking forward to what would life look like after the move. What are the employment opportunities? How much would you be making? How much would your expenses be? And could you afford to do all those things? And so, like I said, I think in that first season, what she would tell you that she learned was how to make informed financial decisions, that she wasn't guessing. She wasn't like too many people that age, myself included, 22, 23 years old. By the time I was 23 years old, I had moved across country multiple times because I was a poor planner, because I had no sense of making informed financial decisions. So I was kind of running by the seat of my pants, where this young woman was much more diligent in her research and understanding what her financial situation is, what her financial situation could be, and making informed financial decisions. And so, as I said, we stopped working together on a monthly basis in May as she moved back home and she got settled and just kind of got into a routine of managing money on her own. We didn't end up connecting again until February of 2023. And this was a very different season. Hey there, budgeteers. You know, good news can only be good news if there's bad news. So, what's the bad news? The bad news is you and I have a deadly disease called sin, and this disease causes us to rebel and disobey God. See, God is holy, righteous, and just, and He cannot be in the presence of sin. So this horrible disease of ours separates us from the God who created us. And the bad news gets worse. There isn't anything you or I can do to make ourselves right with God. We are dead in our sins and on our way to an eternity separated from God. But that's not God's will for us. See, for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whoever believes in Him should not perish but have everlasting life. God did what only God could do. He made a way for us to be reconciled to Him through Jesus Christ. Jesus came into the world to save sinners like you and me. While we were still sinners, storing up God's anger against us for our rebellion and disobedience, Christ died for us. Jesus took the punishment that you and I deserve and have earned. Jesus is the substitute for your punishment and mine. Now, isn't that some good news? The word gospel means good news. The gospel of Jesus Christ is that you and I broke God's law and Jesus paid the fine. When we place our faith and trust in Jesus, we get to experience God's grace and mercy. Our gratitude should turn us from our rebellious and disobedient sin toward God, seeking after Him and His righteousness. When we do, God gives us a new heart and a new mind. Praise God for His goodness, and remember, God loves, humans sin, Jesus saves. So, in what I would refer to as my client's second season, this was a season of flourishing. And we reconnected in February of 2023, and my client was actually making less than she had been making when we were working together prior. But she was back home, and so her expenses looked very different as well. And she was benefiting from the idea that she didn't have large rent payments. She didn't have a car payment, these types of things. So she was managing just shy of $2,000 a month, about $1,800 to be more precise. And so we re-engaged in the budget, taking a look at what she had coming in, what her new expenses were, again, whether or not she was running a surplus or a deficit. And we identified, what are your financial goals now? Now that you didn't make that cross-country move, are we postponing that? Is it off the table altogether? And what would you like to do in the meantime? So we revised some goals. The Peace of Mind Fund, instead of a goal of $10,000, we had a goal of $6,000, because she also wanted to implement a travel fund. So it sounded like the cross-country move was not going to happen, and therefore wanted to travel instead, and so had a goal of a travel fund of $4,000. So as we were working through that, we were able to save those amounts fairly quickly. I don't remember exactly when we got to $6,000 in the Peace of Mind Fund and $4,000 in the travel fund, but it didn't take long. And so she wanted to start traveling. By the time October of that same year had rolled around, so a short 8 months later, I had encouraged her to apply for a credit card, and so I could help teach her how to manage it properly. And so she applied and she got her first credit card. And what I wanted to teach her right off of the bat were a couple of foundational principles that I would share with any client. And that is, one, we never put anything on the credit card that we don't already have the cash to pay for. This will help you do the other thing you've heard plenty of people tell you to do, and that is pay off your credit card every month. Well, how can you pay off your credit card every month if you're charging it with money you don't have? So, rule number one, we don't put anything on the credit card that we don't already have the cash to pay for. So then why use a credit card, you might ask? Well, that is exactly what she asked. And here was, in part, my response. I said, I want you to be able to travel and make the purchases that you need to make when you need to make them with convenience and security. So, what do I mean? Well, anytime you're going to travel, especially if it includes airfare, you need to be booking travel well in advance. Well, I want you to be able to secure whatever flights or whatever you need without putting your checking account at risk by using a debit card. So I want you to have the convenience of being able to charge it, and I want you to have the security of knowing that you're not putting your own money at risk, that if there was any fraud, that would be on a credit card rather than freezing your cash in your checking account. And so with the rule that we don't ever put anything on the credit card that we don't already have the money for, and having a fully funded travel fund, she could easily charge airfare, lodging, any car rentals, or anything that she needed to on the credit card, and she had the cash to already pay for it. And then if, let's say, she charged airfare, paid that with the travel fund, then part of the priority for the next pay period was let's replenish the travel fund. So in that time, she got to travel. She got to travel abroad. She got to travel somewhat locally, and got to do some incredible things. And never once having to go into the peace of mind fund, never once paying an ounce of interest, and learned how to use a credit card wisely. During that time, we also had an opportunity to start using the credit card for other expenses like reoccurring monthly bills. But again, we budget for all of those things. We have the cash in the checking account to pay the credit card as soon as those things are charged. Not that we make credit card payments every time there's a charge, but every 2 weeks when we get together on payday, we make a credit card payment for everything that's been charged that we planned for last time. That makes sense, right? If I was sitting down with her today, I would say, hey, what reoccurring monthly bills are coming up? Okay, it's this, and this. Those are all going to get charged to the credit card. So we're going to safeguard that money in your checking account so that when we meet again in 2 weeks, you can just make the credit card payment. Bada bing, bada boom. And so in this season of flourishing, even when only making less than $2,000 a month, but by managing it all properly and by having a travel fund and then implementing this credit card, this particular season, I think the lesson learned in this season is that discipline makes all the difference. She is so incredibly disciplined at mapping out a budget and executing according to that budget. And she's so disciplined in not charging things that she doesn't already have the cash to pay for, that this season, the season of February 2023 to August of 2024, was just a season of flourishing. And she really did well to manage her finances well enough that there are people in her circle of influence who were very impressed and maybe even slightly a little envious of this travel fund. Having $4,000 at the ready to travel when you want to is pretty cool for anybody of any age. It's especially kind of cool when somebody in their mid-20s has that kind of cash. But again, discipline made all the difference. And that led into this current season that she's been in, ever since August of 2024. Hey there, budgeteers. It's a brand new year, and that means it's time for new habits, starting with your money. Take charge of your finances in 2025 with New Money Habits Financial Coaching. This isn't your typical financial advice. New Money Habits is all about giving you the knowledge, tools, and support to make confident money moves and build a rock solid financial foundation. Here's the deal: we're offering a free discovery session to kick off your journey to financial freedom. That's right, no strings attached. In this session, one of our expert coaches will help you to identify your financial goals and create a better plan for your money. We'll help you master your money mindset, sharpen your money management skills, and keep you accountable every step of the way. Make 2025 the year you say goodbye to financial stress and hello to the freedom you've been dreaming about. Schedule your free discovery session today and start creating the new money habits you need to achieve financial freedom. So, in this present season, which began in August of 2024, my client has gone through a lot of different changes. She moved out and moved out of town. And so the move not only required her to find an apartment, it also meant finding a new job. And this is all centered around she's an athlete that is doing some very specific training. And so she wanted to be near the training facility. And so to do so meant moving, and it meant leaving one job for a new one. And so in August of 2024, she stops working at the other place. She moves in September of 2024. And at that time, she had her $6,000 peace of mind fund, and she had $3,000 in her travel fund. So in the two funds collectively, she had $9,000. And we repurposed the $3,000 in the travel fund and to marry it with the $6,000 in the peace of mind fund so that she had $9,000 to help her with this move and any time that she was going to be unemployed. And unbeknownst to her, and certainly I didn't see it coming, she was going to be unemployed for 3 months. So earlier I said the peace of mind fund was aptly named. Indeed it is, because for my client, having the $9,000 in a peace of mind fund gave her the peace of mind needed to end a job, move out of town, and start looking for work elsewhere. And so we had to manage those funds very diligently, and she did it very well. Again, very disciplined, making sure to continue to have the cash needed anytime she was going to charge anything. Obviously, the travel had gone down, so charging went down too. But there were things that we were putting on the credit card, but we knew we had the money to make the payments. And so this third season, I'd call a season of growth. And it's, when we are challenged, we have an opportunity to grow. And this client certainly did. And so in this third season, she is not only moving and looking for new employment, but like I said, she also needed to rent an apartment. And all of her financial acumen to this point allowed her to be selective about the apartment she chose. She didn't have to settle. She got a couple of job offers and she threw a couple by me, and I just said, knowing you the way that I do and the things that you're passionate about and the things that you're looking, this seems like you'd be settling and I know that you've been unemployed for a month now or 2 months now, and so it seems scary, but I wouldn't settle. And so it allowed her to be selective when she was out job searching. And so then she landed a great job in November of 2024 that she was and still is thrilled about. And so it allowed her to be selective about her job. And then something interesting kind of happened that neither one of us saw coming, but it actually is kind of the precipice, or at least the reason why I wanted to do this episode, because she encourages me so much, and I'm so in awe uh, by her financial maturity and her she's understanding certain things that I don't know many other mid 20-year-olds really understand, and it ties to this being selective. So in January of 2025, so just a month ago, um, we make her credit card payment like we do every single month, and somehow we miscalculated something. And so we didn't pay the full statement balance for December. We missed it by like $50, $54. And by missing it, she was charged interest for the first time in 14 months. And when we saw the interest charge, we immediately did, some forensic accounting. Hey, where did we miss it? Because, we're making all these payments. How did we miss $54? It's not as though she didn't have the $54. There's just somehow, some way, we missed it. Now, we knew we were carrying a little bit of a balance, meaning I can see it right now. Some of you are asking, well, if you paid off the credit card every month, how in the world would you even miss the $54? And it's because during this season of growth, we were paying off the statement balance, but we were carrying a balance from one month to the next. That was like the new charges throughout the month. So we were making sure to pay the statement balance from the prior month, but we were carrying somewhat of a balance. And so we missed it. We miscalculated. We thought we paid I'll just make up the numbers. Let's even call it $500. Like we thought we paid the $500, but somehow, some way we only paid $450. So we missed this $50 ish. And so get charged interest. Well, immediately call up the credit card company, because the amount of interest also seemed really odd. We know it's got a high interest rate on it. It's her first credit card. That's going to happen. But when you're not paying interest, you don't have to concern yourself with that as much. So we give the credit card company a call. Yes, I said we. So this is just one of the many things that I'll do with my clients, is anytime that they need to call and talk about their finances, I'll be on the line with them when they need me, if they need me. I've done this for people calling about medical bills, credit cards, old bad debts, whatever. So we call the credit card company to figure out what's going on with the amount of interest. Like we get it. Like we didn't pay the full statement balance. What's going on with the amount of interest being charged? And so come to find out that not only were they charging interest on the small unpaid portion of $54, but they were also charging interest for all of the charges throughout the month. And so this may be very common practice with some credit cards, but I don't believe this is common practice with all credit cards. I believe my own experience has been that if I didn't pay the full statement balance, I paid interest on the unpaid portion of that statement balance. So we investigated. The credit card company was actually very generous in that they were like, "Hey, we'll waive or we'll refund you this interest payment because we see that you're very responsible. We'll refund you this amount, but because you missed, like there will be one more month that you're going to get charged some interest before you get it back to zero and all as well." But I tell this story because that's not the most impressive part. The most impressive part is the conversation that my client and I have afterwards, where she is realizing that she's allowed to be selective. She's like, if this is the way that this credit card company is going to behave, I'm not interested in keeping this credit card. Like I would go somewhere else. where there are more favorable terms, including a more favorable interest rate. Now, interest rates on credit cards are ridiculous anyway, but if you could still go from, say, like 29% down to 24% or 19%, that's good. Again, we don't plan on paying any interest, but I can also see that if there's another credit card out there that operates more under the, if you missed $54, we're just going to charge you on the unpaid portion, those are more favorable terms as well. Whatever terms she ends up finding more favorable is completely up to her. What I love is that she's being selective. She's realizing that these are my finances and I'm not beholden to this credit card company. And if I want to use this tool, I can go and get this tool from somebody else who has more favorable terms. And so I think the lesson learned in this season of life is she understands she doesn't have to settle. She didn't have to settle on the apartment. She didn't have to settle on the job. And she doesn't have to settle for this credit card company. And so I hope you can start to understand why I wanted to take an episode to brag on this particular client. She is killing it financially. She is somebody who is contributing to 401k retirement, contributing to Roth IRA retirement, and managing everything else in the meantime very well. We had the Peace of Mind Fund. We did have to dip into that in this season of growth, but now that she's gainfully employed again, we can easily replenish that. And she's doing all of these things, and none of them are easy, but she makes them look easy because she is so incredibly disciplined. And so one of my favorite things, it's kind of a double-edged sword, is when I get to meet with her, sometimes, more so recently than in the past, there's a sense of stress and anxiety around her finances. One of my favorite things is by the time we're done talking about what is the plan for this pay period and go and execute this plan, all of that stress and anxiety seems to wash away. And so I wanted to share, and I cannot wait to have her on so that you can hear her side of the story. But I hope that I've done it justice today. I hope that I've inspired anybody who is listening that with the right discipline, we can make big things happen. Last week, I announced that we are doing something brand new over on Patreon. So I want to make sure that if you're still hanging out with us on the podcast right now, that you hear about our Patreon page. So go to patreon.com/newmoneyhabits and make sure to join the community over there. You can join for free. We also have a few memberships. Take a look at the different options and see which one will work best for you. But we are curating a ton of great content over there for you by a number of hand-selected financial coaches who have specialties in areas like student loans, marriage, money mindset, and much more. So go ahead and check us out on Patreon. Take a look at those memberships and see which one would be right for you. As I mentioned last time as well, I've started a exclusive series over there called Coach's Confessions, where I open up about my own personal financial journey, and I give you all the idiotic details of all the dumb things I've done with money before really kind of growing up and waking up and learning how to manage money in a way that brings God honor and actually serves me well. So go ahead and check us out, and I'll catch you guys next time. That does it for this episode of the New Money Habits Podcast. Remember, if you have any questions, make sure to hit us up on social at New Money Habits and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please consider leaving a 5-star rating and review to help us spread this message of hope to people looking for a better plan for their money.